Hi everyone, it's Chenzo from Reality Art Pod, here to talk about Deal or No Deal Island, Season 2, Episode 1, titled The Banker Strikes Back. This will be my first season covering Dondi, as Parvati was the real appeal for me. I made a poll, people spoke, so I'm committed to doing the season. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe if you haven't. As always, my videos aren't meant to replace the original material, so if you missed the episode, I highly encourage you to seek it out on Peacock to enjoy and form your own opinion first. But let's dive into it. The players pull up on Lana Del Rey's Gator Tour. We meet teacher Philip, who says teaching made him a manipulator, and our queen Parvati, who meets private chef Luke. Luke has the nerve to have no idea who Parvati is. She reminds us that she organized the women on Survivor to vote out all the men.
I could be a cult leader if I want to.
Australian Survivor alum David is there too, claiming to be a YouTuber, my peer. Host Joe Manganiello is back. He says the banker is back with a vengeance. Every night, someone will face the banker to earn money for the prize pot. Joe doesn't have an easy job. There's a lot going on today. Their first challenge is the banker's pyramid scheme. There are $5 million of cases on the pyramid, and 3 paths to the pyramid with various difficulty, jumping across some rock platforms, a path through the jungle, and 1 team of 3 will be on a zip line. There are also unmarked cases that contain mystery values and steals. The path they choose will also choose their team. In the end, the team with the lowest combined case value will be eligible for elimination. Before the challenge, they get to strategizing. Dixon wants to be underestimated for being small, and Letty wants people to know she's a good teammate even though she's a clear physical threat. Survivor David, Chef Luke, and New Yorker with a blowout Seychelles scheme to observe at the top of the zipline, see who gets the high value cases, then try to get the steal and steal their case. When they get started, Luke quickly goes against David's plan, going for the unmarked case. Chaos ensues on the rock path when Sydney continues to faceplant on the rocks. Charitable Letty and Parvati help Sydney so everyone can go about their day. David continues to observe from his perch, seeing that Letty takes the highest case, and he ziplines to get the final unmarked case. So he saw Letty take the case with the highest value, but Parvati is onto his ass and organizes a case white elephant in the water to switch around the highest value case amongst the rock team. Following the challenge, Joe asks Parvati about her strategy in the game, and she insinuates that David and his pals were shady for going for the unmarked cases. The jungle team opened their cases, ranging from $100,000 to $450,000. Then the zipline team opened their cases. Luke gets a steal and chooses to seal the $450,000 case, rather than going for a case from the rock team, who have the higher value cases, which pisses off Seychelles. Seychelles has $75,000, and David gets a $200,000 case with a swap. He needs to swap with someone from the rock team to save his team from being last. He thinks that Letty has the $1 million case. Sydney thinks that David is hot, so she has her team offer David a deal to take their $750,000 case, which would put the jungle team in the bottom for the week. David doesn't take the deal, deciding that he knows that Letty has the $1 million case, so he still decides to take Letty's case. But as we know, and David doesn't, they swap the cases. The Rocky Path team open their cases, and they have the most money. They ate that, leaving David, Luke, and Seychelles in the bottom. Sydney had the $1 million case, so she'll be safe and will get to decide who on the losing team will have to face the banker. If the player who faces the banker loses, they'll go home, and if they win, they'll pick one of the other 2 players on their team to go home instead. They get to their pods they'll be living in. This looks so cool. I want to live in the yellow one. And some personal content with Sydney saying she lives in her car and studied at Columbia, where Lachelle teaches. Now Sydney works on Wall Street. Seychelles is annoyed with Sydney and doesn't plan to plead to her. As they tuck in, Luke says that he wants to play the banker. He just had a divorce and wants to take care of his family who took care of him. Seychelles doesn't want to play the banker. Sydney continues to be hot for married David. Lachelle tells us that Sydney's head is not in the game. Parvati starts her meet and greets with her fans, telling them one by one that she's going to take them all to the end. She tells David that she recognizes him, and we get a formal introduction to David from Australian Survivor, who none of the other players recognize. Parvati and David seem to have to work together, at least for now. Before bed, David and Sydney strategize and seem to convince Luke to agree to eliminate Seychelles instead of David if they pick Luke to play the banker. The next day, Dixon tells Parvati and David about his adoption story. They hug him and call him their son in the game. An alliance of Seychelles' roommates meet so Seychelles can get reassurance, but the other players are annoyed by Seychelles' behavior and are impersonating her.
She was like, I'm really sorry right now, but can you guys just go? I want to talk to them in private.
That's a good.
David doesn't understand Seychelles' strategy, and neither do I. Seychelles meets with Luke, finally campaigning for herself, saying that David is a way bigger threat than her.
And I think that if Luke sent me home, would be probably one of the stupidest moves. David is the biggest man here.
She pledges her loyalty to Luke. David gets paranoid seeing them, so he and Sydney re-strategize. So we head to facing the banker, where Sydney calls herself the leader of her team in the challenge, which pisses off her teammates. Sydney picks Luke to face the banker, and Joe gets a personal call, a video message from Howie Mandel. Howie is underwhelmed with them. Howie's being quite rude. He doesn't have time to leave the America's Got Talent set, so he's handing the reins over to a new banker. Who cares? Luke gets started with his game of Deal or No Deal, with Sydney's $1 million case the highest value on the board. If Luke accepts an offer higher than the case of his choice, he stays in the game. Models Ben and Kamari are back. Love them. Luke does his cases. We learn he likes football as he bases all of his case picks off of football references. How fun. The banker makes a first offer that seems to be a 50-50 chance. But on the second offer, Luke is offered $220,000 with 4 cases still in the game with higher value. Not a good offer, and he doesn't take it. His next turn is terrible, and he goes back to a coin toss offer, which he doesn't take. He then has another terrible turn, as Sachel watches on from the sidelines, subtly smirking. Even though his turn was bad, the banker gives Luke a final offer, a very generous offer, raising the offer for some reason, despite him having a bad turn. As a reward for him getting this far, which seems like crap for me, the banker was soft for that. They basically give him a 2/3 chance of staying, which he should have taken, but he doesn't. Sachel gets a kick out of this.
Mad dumb.
Then Luke has another bad turn. The only good case comes off the board. He's left with $1 and $500. They offer him $300, taking him back to a 50-50 chance of staying. He doesn't take the deal, sticking with his original case. In the end, Luke has $1 in his case. He made a bad deal and is sent home. So we have to say goodbye to Luke here, who just had such a bad episode. I actually feel for him, as he was obviously way over his head on the show. He doesn't know who Parvati is. He gets shuffled around in the daily challenge. David really tries to play 3D chess with him in the challenge, but I think he just thought the challenge was to ride the zip line and get a case. Then when it was time to swap cases, he decides to just go for the biggest case he can see. Sachel repeatedly calls him stupid and dumb throughout the episode, which is not nice of her, since she did the same thing as him on the zip line and ended up with the lowest case on their team. When it came time for the game, he really wanted to play the banker, which was bad strategy. In this case, you should not want to play the banker unless you feel the other 2 players would send you home, but he volunteered and likely promised David safety. I'm convinced that he was just going to take whatever was in his selected case no matter what, which I think is kind of badass because it takes a lot of thinking out of the game. But I think if you ever get an offer where the odds are in your favor, you should just take that deal at the earliest opportunity. And that was his biggest mistake. In the end, he said he deserved to go home, and he really did, but I just think he was cast on the wrong show. I think he should have been cast on Netflix's Nailed It instead. Nicole Byer would have a field day with this guy. After Luke's departure, Joe tells the players the banker's pronouns, she, her. So there's a mystery banker. Who is it? Let me know in the comments. Who cares? Back at their house, Sachel and Dixon are thrilled that Luke is gone. Letty is taken aback when she hears Dixon call Parvati his mother. Maria Grace and Courtney talk smack about Sydney and call Storm Box of Rocks because he's apparently the new house person that they call stupid. Also, I haven't talked about this one person at all, but there is this guy named Rock on the cast who looks like Red from Big Brother, and he wore a funny shirt this episode. He did nothing else. He opened a case in the challenge. The next day, Lachelle tells us that she plans to play up her auntie role, but she thinks everyone is nuts and is going to use her career as a social worker to get ahead. Parvati and David meet to shore up their alliance, but ahead of the challenge, Sydney approaches David and is given clingy vibes love. She wants him to be her partner in the challenge, and do be pressuring him to say yes. Joe pulls up in this weird outfit, reminding them that the grand prize is $1 right now. The banker has made a treasure hunt for them with a surprise twist that the preview for next episode reveals that we already know is Dr. Will is going to show up. This episode really could have been an hour and a half. The last half hour of this episode was really the first half hour of next week's episode. So yeah, that's how the episode ends. Joe is explaining the rules of the challenge. It's so lame. But this was a really good episode. I think this one episode was better than any of the episodes in the first season. So I'm glad I'm doing this. And in the preview, there were some explosive fights that I'm so excited to talk about. Let me know in the comments, what did you think of the episode and of Luke as a player? Are you excited for Dr. Will to join the cast? If you liked the video and want to keep up with the future videos, give me a like and subscribe. I'll be back next Tuesday for more Deal or No Deal Island. Until next time, have a nice week. Bye.